Hey, it's Morella Manelli, and today is all about Pre-lightening 101. And I'm so excited to show you my platinum card technique and how to achieve the perfect level 9-10 hair so you can create any vivid or creative shade. So let's get started. This is my model Jaden, and before we get started, we're gonna assess her hair. As you can see, she's a natural level 7, and she has some previously highlighted hair, and she just got her hair done about 6 weeks ago. Knowing all of this information is gonna tell me what the best lightener option is. Our overall goal is to get her to a solid level 9-10. Anything darker than that is actually gonna expose that orange underlying pigment, which can make it really difficult to neutralize. Plus, it's not gonna give us the perfect canvas to create those creative shades. So for her new growth area, I'm gonna go in with blue powder lightener at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 20 volume developer. And then for those mid lengths and ends, I'm actually gonna go in with Beyond Bond lightener at a 1:2 mixing ratio, so that way it can protect her hair as it's lifting. So now we're gonna go ahead and section our model's hair. To create our first section, I'm gonna use the arch of the eyebrow as my guide and just bring that right on back. So essentially I'm just creating a mohawk section, taking her all the way back to the apex. And then we're just gonna clip this section away. So I just created a mohawk section right here on the top, utilizing the arch of the eyebrow as my guide and bringing it all the way back to the apex. Now I'm gonna take her side sections, utilizing the corner of that mohawk section we created, and creating a triangular section, taking it all the way behind her ear, and then just clipping that front piece away. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Now to complete the last 3 sections in the back, I'm just going to follow the line from this top mohawk section we created and bringing that all the way down. Just a little tip, the cleaner you are with your sections, the more seamless your application will be. So here's a quick recap of the sections that I created. So in the back we have a total of 3 sections. The one in the center is mirroring the mohawk section we created in the back, so it's just rectangular. And then these 2 on the side. The reason why I went in with the sectioning is to isolate the hairline. And the reason for that is because usually the hairline is a little bit more fragile. I'm gonna go ahead and get started on the center back section. But one thing I wanna point out is I've prepared 2 different size foils. So I have my standard size pop-up foil, and then I actually just cut another set in half. And this is gonna come into play when we get ready to isolate some of those highlighted pieces on the mids and ends. So I always start in the back, working from the bottom up. So that way, if I ever have to remove any foils, I can go ahead and slip those right out and even wash it out if necessary. So I'm just gonna take small 1/4 inch size sections, and we're gonna wrap every single bit of hair on her head. And for this first section, I'm just gonna go ahead and start out with that blue powder lightener. And I am gonna take this all the way to the root. Normally, I would take this about a 1/4 inch away from the root area, but because she's got these previously highlighted pieces, I wanna make sure that we get a nice even lift. So a really quick tip is to make sure that your sections are an 1/8 inch wide. You want your sections as pretty thin so that way you can see through them. And this is gonna be a really great section to show you here because you can really see where these highlights are a little isolated. So I'm gonna take that blue powder lightener and I'll apply it right onto that new growth area without necessarily getting it right on the scalp, but pretty close to her scalp. And this is where I'm gonna weave out these dark pieces as best as I can. Now it's almost impossible to weave out every single dark piece of hair. So you will have some overlap, which is why we're gonna be using the Beyond Bond. But a little added trick that I like to use is mix up a little bit of nourishing mask with moisturizing oil and just apply that to those previously lightened pieces. And this is where we're gonna use those little half foils here. So I'm just gonna place that right onto where those blonde pieces were at. And this is gonna help protect the hair underneath. And then now I'm gonna take that Beyond Bond and blend that right on down. And then another added tip is to make sure to tri-fold so that way this product is only mirroring the other product and it's not gonna get onto that blue powder lightener. And then I usually secure the edges here, so this ensures that those foils are not gonna go anywhere. So as you can see, I brought the lightener down a little deeper on this section, and that's just because there wasn't really any highlights going on in this area. And there's one highlight right here. So I did isolate that a little bit, but now I'm gonna go ahead and pick through this bottom and this top section. And I'm just picking up the darkest pieces that I can find as best as I can. And then applying that mask right there, laying that right on top. And then I'm gonna take my Beyond Bond lightener right on down through this section here. So I'm just finishing up the last couple sections here on my back middle section. And one of the things that I'm finding with our model's hair is that she has lots of really tiny highlights in certain sections. So each foil is really gonna tell a different story. So I'm gonna dress it differently each and every time. So sometimes I'm not able to actually go in and pick out every single section of hair. So this is where I will bring that blue powder lightener, so a little down further, and this is where you're just gonna have to make your best judgment. So this is where I start to incorporate bringing my lightener down in more darker areas. But I do have lots of little tiny darker pieces throughout, and it's just unavoidable to overlap. And this is where the Beyond Bond lightener is really gonna help you out. So like this piece is pretty light already, but I do have quite a bit going on in here. I'm just gonna lightly bring that down with my Beyond Bond, and then just push those hairs to the side and trifold. This is my very, very last section. Let's go ahead and take a look at how these lowlights and highlights are placed. So kind of the same situation. It can be rather challenging to really isolate all of those. So just make your best judgment and know that there's gonna be a little bit of overlap. It's one of those conversations you can have with your client prior to, that there may be a little bit of breakage, but we're gonna go in with the best lightener possible in this case, which again is that Beyond Bond. Now to get started on the side section, we're gonna start going diagonally along the hairline, and then we're gonna start to pivot our way right on up. Now, since the hairline and the neck can be a little bit of a challenging area, I'm gonna show you a little trick that I like to do. And it should make it a little easier for you. I'm gonna take the foil and we're gonna wrap it up towards her head. As you can see, I lifted the hair all the way up, and I'm holding it nice and taut, so I have a nice firm position with my foil. It's not gonna go anywhere. And now I can really get in close with that lightener, and it's really gonna hold nice and clean for you in this area. Just bringing that blue powder lightener to about right here, because that's where I see most of her roots, but these little baby hairs are a little bit darker, so I'm taking that Beyond Bond right in there and still trifolding. So now in this section, as we start to work with this, we're gonna slightly pivot, and this is actually the best time to pivot because we're working with really fine hair along that hairline. So if your sections are a little thicker, it's kind of okay. We don't wanna start pivoting drastically when we get into this interior, because then we're gonna have to take extra sections. So now that this section is completely done, a little added tip is just make sure that the very last section that you complete is horizontal to the section. So that way you have a nice clean working space when we go in horizontally here on this top mohawk section, and the foils aren't gonna disrupt your working space. Now the back 3 sections are completely done. And as you can see here, this middle section, they are all done horizontally. And then on my side sections here, we started off diagonally along the hairline and pivoting all the way up till we finish horizontally right on these top 2 sections. So now I have a nice clean working space to go through and do her side sections and the top mohawk section. And we left these almost to last because they are the most fragile, so we just want to take a little extra care of them. When I go through with my placement, I'm gonna go in diagonally along with the hairline. And we're gonna continue on with the same pattern, isolating the previously lightened hair, and if it needs lightening, we'll go through with that Beyond Bond, but if not, we're just gonna use that blue powder lightener. So each section can be a little bit different since she has lots of different lowlights and highlights going on. And we don't have too much lightening to do right around this hairline section, but I am gonna bring this blue powder just a little bit down, and then the rest of it, I'm gonna use a little bit of my Beyond Bond right through here, because I just see a little bit of darkness there. And then these little babies right here, I'm just gonna slap on that nourishing mask. Now that we're working on this top section, you can really see how important it is to finish off horizontally on those side sections. So we have a nice clean working space here, so that way we're not battling foils. And then another little tip that I wanted to go over with you is why we are doing this platinum card technique and why we're using foils. So one thing to note is that foils are a heat conductor. It's gonna encapsulate our product and make it keep working throughout, and you're really gonna be able to get your client to a level 910 almost in one shot. So that's really why we use the foils, and that way too, you can also isolate and pull out foils as you're working. So if one section's done, you'll be able to remove it and just let it dry out. So just to recap on her foil placement, I went in with some horizontal sections right on top of this mohawk rectangular section right on the top. And then for the sides, I just added in 3 to 4 foils on each side, giving me the ultimate control for those really fragile baby hairs. And we just put in about 3 to 4 foils on each section. And then for her side sections in the back, I started out going diagonally along the hairline and then pivoting, going along with the curvature of the head, but making sure to finish off horizontally on the section, giving me a nice clean working space when I did that final section. And then right here in the back, we just did a horizontal placement, and now we're just gonna go ahead and process and wait to do her final toner. It's been about 15 minutes since I last finished her top section. So now I removed all of the foils and went through and made sure that we got nice even lift. The Beyond Bond lightener is doing an amazing job of keeping her hair intact, so I'm not worried about it whatsoever. But I am letting it start to dry out while it's lifting right at the root area, just tapping in where it needed a little bit of extra product. So now I'm gonna get ready to go through and start to remove these foils. And this is where I'm gonna start to reapply. Now I also mixed up a fresh batch of new lightener just in case. So this section in particular wasn't saturated properly enough, so this is just gonna give me that opportunity to go through and reapply. And then you can even see that I'm really working that lightener into the hair because it just needs a little extra oomph, so that way I can just work that product right on into the hair. Now that I'm completely done removing all of the foils, I'm gonna get ready to rinse the back section and even the side sections out from her hair. I'm gonna let this top section just process for about 10 to 15 more minutes. I'm just gonna keep an eye on it and then do her final glaze. Once your lightener is done processing, you wanna make sure that you rinse with cool water. This is just gonna help prevent any further scalp irritation, and your client's gonna thank you for it later. Today I'm gonna be using Kenra Color Demi-Permanent, SV Rapid Toner, and Clear. So the mixing ratio that I decided to go in with was 40 grams of Clear to 10 grams of my SV Rapid Toner to 100 grams of my 9 volume developer. I decided to go in with this formulation to help neutralize a lot of these unwanted yellow tones to create a nice, even, blank canvas, since I'm gonna be going in with a cooler, creative palette after we're all done toning. And here's the final result on how I did a platinum card technique and how I achieved the perfect level 9-10 hair so you can have the perfect canvas for any creative shade. So I really hope you enjoyed this video on Pre-lightening 101 and you got some great tips from this platinum card technique and how to achieve the perfect level 9-10 hair. And if you love this video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and check out our other educational videos, and we'll see you next time.